had the honor of a lifetime Thursday night. Got to meet with the 47th President of the United States, Commander in Chief, right here in my own hometown. It was my fifth time having the opportunity to meet one on one with him. This is certainly the coolest moments. This is actually the first time I got to meet with him since he's a sitting president. Obviously, I worked for him during the campaign, so most of our interactions was during that time. But this is the first time as the commander in chief. Also, it being in my hometown, extra special. Not something I expected originally. I think it was supposed to be 5 minutes, and of course, the guy that we all know and love so much talks a lot, and so he kind of brushed his handlers off of let's keep this conversation going, don't rush me. And it was pretty cool to have that. I will certainly say, as somebody that worked with him really close on the campaign trail, this is the first time this cycle, there was any type of youth outreach from a Republican candidate. The DNC started a youth advisory council in 2005. President Trump commissioned our youth advisory council in January of 2023. So 20 years after the DNC did it, the RNC hadn't have done anything. And together with Michael Watley and Susie Wiles and the president's team, Trump made this a priority, and he wanted to actually make an effort to reach out to the next generation of Americans. I was honored to chair that, and I'm honored to continue to chair that going into the 26th cycle and the 28th general election. And that's most of what we talked about in this meeting. And so the first thing he said as I walked across the carpet, kind of in this backstage holding room, was, "You've been killing it lately. You killed it this morning." And he happened to have caught a segment of me talking on Mornings with Maria. He was watching Scott Bessent. He said the segment before me, and Scott announced that minerals deal being signed with Ukraine, and he happened to keep the TV on. Thankfully, he did. And so he said, "You killed it. You killed it." And he happened to have caught my segment, previewing his speech and talking about all the great efforts that we had made in some recent Yale polls with Gen Z. And he turned to Caroline Levitt, who was standing, right outside of the room, and said, "This guy's been killing it. This guy's killed it." And he goes, "Do you ever get nervous on there?" And I was like, "No, sir, but I am pretty nervous right now." And he goes, "Oh, you'll be fine," kind of pat me on the back and said, "You'll do good." And we started talking about the youth vote. And the first thing I told the president was, "You got this secret weapon going into 2026. We were talking about kind of if we think we can continue to make gains, because my priority as the chair of the RNC's Youth Council is that 24 is not an anomaly, to make sure that it's not a one-time win of Gen Z, but we continue to kind of grow on that. The Democrat Party is a sinking ship of a party. I think come 28, they will be a Titanic at the bottom of the ocean as we go to swear in J.D. Vance as our 48th president of the United States. The Democrats are going to have to, realize, wake up and smell the roses after this devastating defeat where they lost every single swing state, that they messed up, that they went too far, to the left. They're too radical. They're too woke. They're going to move more to the center. They're going to come back to their moderate base. That way, they'll kind of inspire more of a Joe Manchin type figure to lead their party going forward. They did the opposite. And I'm glad they did the opposite. But they've actually put up figures like Jasmine Crockett and AOC and Bernie Sanders as their leaders. None of those people are inspiring Gen Z. None of those people are bringing, more voters into the party. It's just making this weird radical wing of the party be the vocal voices. So by all means, let Jasmine Crockett, AOC, and Bernie Sanders be the voice, the future of the DNC. It'll make our job easier come the midterms and come 2028. But it's a really weird position that they've taken to go more radical than Kamala Harris. And that's why Kamala lost, because she was too radical. So I think that's why they're not winning Gen Z and why we're not seeing any numbers go in that direction. They certainly have a interest of people who aren't necessarily educated on politics or how government works, but they hear the catchphrases from the socialist leaders of the Democrat Party where they say free college. And the DNC right now is doing this thing where they dangle free things and emotions in front of the face of Gen Z, and they're attempting to win them over. And they're doing a poor job of it. But sure, there's a few people that fill up an arena for AOC, and those people are simply there for those free things, because AOC is going to make life better and more affordable and easier to live by actually, making it harder on taxpayers. But the young people in the audience aren't thinking about that. They're thinking of free college. Of course, I'm going to support this bartender from New York. And they're not actually looking into the facts of it. I think a big reason why Gen Z rejected that come last November was simple, because for decades we've been sold this false bill of goods from the Democrats. The DNC had a monopoly on Gen Z before this. Like, it was never a debate of who's going to win the youth vote. It was always the Democrats. Republicans had never put up a fight before. And this time we sure put up a fight. And the president visited college campuses. I spoke on 27 college campuses. The president made a point to go on dozens of podcasts. He filmed TikToks daily. We made an effort to reach out to the next generation and say, hey, Make America Great Again isn't just a campaign slogan. It's not a bumper sticker. It's the way of life we want to make for all of you Every single one of you, young and old, we want to make America great again. And I think in just 100 days, the president's shown that that gamble that Gen Z took on him is paying off, that we're actually making America great again. And it's not about ego. It's not about the president's legacy. He could be at, Mar-a-Lago playing golf for the rest of his life, but he's making an effort to actually come back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and make life better for Gen Z. I think that's going to be a really hard thing to campaign against come the midterms. I think it's going to be super hard to campaign against this list of accomplishments come 2028, where the Democrats are trying to, like I just said, scare Gen Z with these emotions and dangle free things in front of them and say, oh, well, they're Nazis and they're Hitler and Elon Musk is trying to be a king. And then we come out and just say, hey, here's a bullet point list of the things we've accomplished in the first 100 days. That's a really hard thing to campaign against.
The White House made headlines this week by finally joining TikTok. As someone who has been urging Republican leadership to modernize our outreach to young people for years, I believe this is a long overdue step in the right direction. But joining TikTok isn't enough on its own. To win over the next generation of voters, this White House must go further, and faster. President Trump's political comeback in 2024 wasn't a fluke. It was built on connecting with youth voters in ways no Republican had ever tried before. When he tapped me to come on as chair of the RNC's inaugural Youth Advisory Council in 2023, I told party leaders bluntly that the days of relying on a Sunday newspaper ad to deliver the GOP's message were over. My generation doesn't read the classifieds. We scroll feeds, we share memes, we stream podcasts. We are digital natives, and any party serious about winning our support has to meet us where we are. That's exactly what President Trump did. He embraced new platforms, leaned into long-form podcasts, and even launched a TikTok account that quickly became the fastest-growing account in the platform's history. The results spoke for themselves. Nationally, 46% of Gen Z backed Trump in 2024, a 10-point surge from 2020. In Wisconsin, Republican support among 18 to 29-year-olds jumped from 36% in 2020 to 48% in 2025-2024. That is a generational shift in motion. But the work is far from over. The GOP holds the House at 218 seats, a razor-thin margin, and the results showed clear divides among young voters. Young men trended right while young women leaned left, especially on issues like abortion. The takeaway is obvious. Republicans can't take their foot off the gas when it comes to modern youth outreach.
President Trump addressing the University of Alabama's class of 2025, encouraging them to excel and embrace the future. Listen.
Today, I'm also asking you to look forward to really something very, very bright and more promising. And it's going to be an even more promising tomorrow. I promise you that. You're the first graduating class of the golden age of America. We're in the golden age. You watch. It's the golden age.
Well, here to discuss campus reform correspondents and officially graduates of the University of Alabama, Jackson Beals and Mary Elizabeth Miller. Hey, everyone. Good morning.
How are you?
Doing great. Congratulations. So, Mary Elizabeth, I'll start with you. Tell me what it was like. You said when y'all were seniors, y'all were the product of the pandemic. So you needed this message of hope.
Absolutely. I graduated during the pandemic and then attended college behind Matt most of the time. It was an extreme honor and privilege to hear him speak last night. He was so empowering and inspirational. He spoke of change and how we have to have hope for the future and that we will be victorious if we just stay determined and work hard.
Yes. And how about you, Jackson? You said you were walking into the stadium and there were people that were trying to organize a walkout. How did that work out for them?
There was. It was actually a friend of mine trying to organize the walkout. It didn't go well. There was roughly 10 or so people that walked out. They weren't even noticeable. But overall, he was embraced well by the campus, a rather conservative campus in a rather conservative state. For the most part, class of 2025 was so honored and so happy to have him there.
Well, almost 7,000 people in your graduating class. So it was the largest graduating class of in history of Alabama. What did you like most? What really resonated with you? And what are your friends saying about it, Mary Elizabeth?
One of my favorite points that he made was that the next chapter of American history will not be made by the Princetons nor the Harvards of the world, but rather the Crimson Tide. I am so extremely proud to be a graduate of the University of Alabama. This is where legends are made, and I think everyone in my class can say that we are extremely proud to be graduates. We are extremely proud to be coming into the workforce at this time and the most opportune time in American history, and we are just so excited and proud.
There's a picture of you. You're pretty close to the president. Yeah, the line that he said last night that I loved was, next chapter will not be written by the Harvard Crimson. It will be written by the Crimson Tide. And the crowd went crazy. And he was like, how'd you like that line? I came up with that line. Jackson, how about for you? What stood out?
That was amazing. Again, that was one of my favorite lines. But what really stood out to me was that his message wasn't really a political one. It was one of motivation, one of enthusiasm about entering adulthood, entering the workforce. And another thing that I appreciated was that I saw people that I knew from my graduating class on both sides of the political spectrum coming together to just support having the president there and support the class of 2025. And all in all, just being excited about the future.
Yeah, Mary Elizabeth, what are people saying? What were they saying after graduation about his speech?
They were excited. They were, I think he really lit a fire in the next generation of leaders. He was so empowering and so encouraging. His message was exactly what we needed to hear at this time. And everybody walked away with smiles on their faces and just kept on talking about how they were so honored that he chose us over Auburn.
Jackson, Mary Elizabeth, thank you all so much. Congratulations, graduates. It's an exciting
Thank you.
time. You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
And here's the truth. If Republicans don't stay in the game, others will. My peers are not only watching President Trump, they're also listening to progressive Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, DNY, and even far-left figures like Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani, who could soon be mayor of New York City. Many in Gen Z are flirting with socialism because those voices are showing up online and on campus in ways conservatives too often don't. If the White House and the GOP want to cement Gen Z gains, they need to get in the game now, not 2 years from now. Here are 3 ways the White House can seize this moment. 1. Launch a White House podcast, the modern fireside chat. One of the biggest turning points in 2023 came when Trump started appearing on popular podcasts. These weren't 7-minute cable news hits clipped for social media. They were long, unfiltered, authentic conversations lasting up to 3 hours. Young Americans are drowning in student debt, struggling to afford eggs and working 2 jobs. They're not paying for cable bundles. They're streaming on YouTube and Spotify. That's why podcasts were so effective, because they met people where they already were. Now that he's back in the Oval Office, President Trump should take it further by hosting a monthly White House podcast.
One, the art of the deal makes a fool out of economists. Like all experts, maybe now it's time to question whether or not it's even a science, the economy. 2, the only thing that will stop a bad guy with a gun from Cincinnati to New York City, from the headquarters of the NFL to a mob riot on the streets of a jazz fest, is a good guy with a gun. Plus, is Sydney Sweeney a Nazi with Gen Z Republicans? 3, a wig gets snatched in the WNBA and it's worse than a broken femur. The tape, we break it down on Will Kane Country. It is Will Kane Country, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page, every Monday through Thursday, live 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Make sure you subscribe to the Will Kane Show on YouTube or Will Kane News on Facebook. And set a reminder so that you're never going to miss hanging out with us, hanging out with the crew, becoming a member of the militia. If you're listening on terrestrial radio on some 36 stations across this great United States of America, make sure you subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. Tinfoil Pat, Two-A-Days Dan, and the WNBA. I want to share with you some video from the league over the past couple of days. A game between the Washington Mystics and the Phoenix
You
Fire?
got it. You got it. No.
Did I get it? That was a total.
No.
That was a total blindfolded guess. Is it the Phoenix Fire? What is it? Is it really?
Phoenix Fire Department. So
Everybody's
no.
having to.
Let's see.
AI Google. I don't think it is the Phoenix Fire.
Mercury.
The Phoenix.
Mercury.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Phoenix.
You knew that the whole time. You were just playing with us.
The Phoenix Wigs. That's apropos because in a game this weekend, a Phoenix Mercury player done lost her wig. And I want you to listen to it, watch it for a moment, because on multiple levels, it is clown show hilarious. Enjoy.
And it bounced around a lot, but at the end, it went through the rim. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. She's going to go head to the back. Oh, no.
Timeout called for Copper to deal with the malfunction. Shakira, beautiful passer, Christy.
Oh, no.
The laugh at the end.
She's got to go to the locker room to deal with the malfunction. I think this clip from the WNBA says it all. And I don't want to burn it up all here in the pregame. A little bit later here on Will Kane Country, we're going to break down that frame by frame, faux pas by faux pas, joke by joke. And we're not going to get kicked out of the WNBA because we're not sitting in the stands. So stick around with us a little bit later here. We're going to break that down. You got to, I think, really marinate in what went down and the reaction from the announcers, and importantly, the reaction from the referees as they kicked out a fan for doing exactly what we're about to do. Laugh at the WNBA. But I want to get into the art of the deal and a deeper conversation about whether or not economics, the college major, the place of experts and geniuses, the science, is voodoo science. Let's get into that with story number 1. Over the weekend, Donald Trump negotiated a trade deal with the European Union. $750 billion of United States energy will be bought by Europe. $600 billion will be invested at home here in the United States. And a 15% tariff will be issued across the board. It's being hailed as an absolute win that took 75 minutes of negotiation for Donald Trump. And it's being described as a complete rollover by the European Union. There are some, like the French Prime Minister, who have said that Donald Trump is a bully and this is a bad deal for Europe. We don't negotiate on behalf of Europe. We negotiate on behalf of the United States of America. And this seems to be yet another win for Donald Trump. The wins when it comes to tariffs and the wins when it comes to the economy continue to defy expectations. The Dow Jones Industrial, the S&P 500, the stock market has been hitting record highs, above 45,000 over the last week. The economy, inflation, dropping. So despite the prediction of experts, Donald Trump is winning. He's illustrating his life's mantra, the art of the deal, deal maker in chief. And it's forcing those who have been avowed haters of Donald Trump to revisit, and in some isolated cases, tell the truth. I give you Bill Maher.
I remember along with probably most people, was saying at the beginning, oh, you know, by the 4th of July, somebody had to think how the country was, the economy was going to be tanked by then. And I was kind of like, well, that seems right to me, but that didn't happen. Now, it could happen tomorrow. I'm just saying that's reality. So let's work first from the reality of that, not from I just hate Donald Trump. Because that's boring and doesn't get us anywhere and leads you to dishonesty. Because the truth is, I don't know what his strategy is. But look, The stock market is at record highs. I know not everybody lives by the stock market, but I also drive around. I don't see a country in a depression at all. I see people out there just living their lives. And I would have thought, and I got to own it, that that these tariffs were going to sink this economy by this time, and they didn't.
In a seemingly unrelated note, the Dallas Cowboys are currently negotiating a new contract with star defensive end Micah Parsons. It looks like after several other players in the NFL, including star defensive end for the Pittsburgh Steelers, T.J. Watt, have negotiated record signings, that the Cowboys are just going to pay more. They're always going to pay more. They're going to pay more for Micah Parsons. And by waiting and delaying their negotiation tactics, they paid more for Dak Prescott. Why am I suddenly, out of nowhere, talking about Jerry Jones? Why am I suddenly, out of nowhere, talking about the Dallas Cowboys? There is a narrative in Dallas. There's a narrative in the NFL. There's a narrative on ESPN that Jerry Jones has a style of negotiation that he employs repetitively, and it almost always ends up with more being paid by the Cowboys. That style of negotiation is never make the first call. Whether or not Jerry Jones developed this maxim in the oil industry or as an entrepreneur, becoming a several times over billionaire, it does seem to be the way he conducts negotiations. Never make the first call. Don't initiate the negotiation. I embarked on my first negotiation when I was 25 years old. When I was 25 years old, I decided I was going to go into media. And having not come from the type of familial wealth where I would buy a television station or buy a radio station, or even having the ego to think I'm going to be on TV, I developed that narcissism later in life. I'm on TV. I thought, man, I want to be in the newspaper business. I had read biographies by Warren Buffett, about a guy named Al Newharth, who started as the CEO of Gannett USA Today. And I was in love with and read voraciously newspapers. I read the Dallas Morning News. I read the Wall Street Journal. I loved it. I loved newspapers. Decided I wanted to go into newspapers. So, small town, weekly newspapers, that was going to be my entree into media. I went to Central Texas and worked in tiny towns. My first job was in Llano, Texas, at the Llano News. I delivered newspapers. I went to city council meetings. I covered high school football. I did everything at that weekly newspaper. Then I was put in charge of the weekly newspaper in Johnson City, named after Lyndon Baines Johnson in the hill country of Texas, the Johnson City Record Courier. And I did all the same jobs in what amounted to about a three-man show on a weekly newspaper in that town of roughly 2,000. But I did all of this making peanuts because I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and at some point I wanted to buy a weekly newspaper, several weekly newspapers. And I went about that when I was about 25, 26, 27 years old, in that range. I think I was 27. And I remember someone at one point who had much more experience than me in business giving me the same lesson of Jerry Jones. Don't make the first offer. Ended up wanting to buy the newspaper in Van Alstyne, Texas, the Van Alstyne Leader. I remember calling the owners of that newspaper, a couple, much more mature than I. And I remember beginning the negotiation. I didn't know. I didn't know. A newspaper like that trades on the value of goodwill, a multiple of EBITDA. But I didn't know their finances, at least at that point. I got to know that through due diligence. But how do you evaluate it? What will they sell it for? What would I pay? There's a huge gap in all of that. There's objectivity on financial papers, but there's a huge gap in the emotional evaluation of something. And I remember on that first call where we actually talked numbers, it was in me. Will, don't go first. Will, don't say a number. Let them, make them first say the number. And I did. I was Jerry Jones. And they went first. And it was the right way to negotiate. The number they said was lower than the number I was willing to pay. Quite a bit lower. And so they set the standard. They set the framework. And I got what amounted to a great deal on those newspapers. Built my little newspaper empire. Ended up being 3-4 newspapers, sold it later to a conglomerate, and I was off on my media and entrepreneurial career. Not knowing it at the time, but then following essentially the advice of Jerry Jones. But the important thing to take away, I think, is who sets the frame. I spent some time this morning poring over the art of the deal, thinking about Donald Trump and thinking about these negotiations and tariffs. And I wondered, does Donald Trump subscribe to the Jerry Jones school of thought? Don't make the first call. And what I learned in perusing the art of the deal is no, that's not really something that he actually does. That's not really his approach. But it's similar in that is you set the frame. Trump is aggressive. Trump comes out strong. Trump comes out hyperbolic. Trump comes out with a maximalist position. You've seen this play out. 50% tariff on the European Union starting July 4th. Huge tariffs on China. Huge tariffs on somebody else. Countries across the world. And over time, after establishing that framework, after establishing that maximalist position, Trump gets flexible. He moves. He comes down. In what seems like a compromise, he's reset the frame. So anything short of his maximalist position appears to the other party as a win. And he ends up getting what he wants or closer to what he wants because he set the standard. We've seen this play out over and over. But lesser minds have looked at this and said, well, Trump always chickens out. In fact, that was a term for a few weeks on Wall Street and echoed by the likes of MSNBC and CNN. The taco trade. They called it the taco trade. Taco standing for Trump always chickens out. Because he moves away from his maximalist position. But he's done that in real estate. He's done that in business. And he's now doing it for the United States of America. He starts on Liberation Day with a 20% tariff on European goods. Then he says it will go to 50% by July. He said it could come down if we don't get a deal to 30% by August 1st. And here we sit today with a new deal with the European Union. Whereas a year and a half ago, the tariff was 1.5% on European goods. We now have in place a 15% tariff on European goods. Does that mean, as Jessica Tarlov of The Five has said, that we're going to get increased price of goods from Europe that you, the consumer, are going to pay? Well, let's just ask ourselves for a moment. Is that what history has borne out? I'm talking about recent history. We'll all have the humility of Bill Maher and seeing how this is going to play out over the long term, but we have to also recognize reality. Recognize present tense. Recognize now. Tariffs have not led to increased inflation. In fact, inflation has come down under Donald Trump. Every economist said this would not happen. As Bill Maher acknowledged, he wasn't alone in that criticism. You would have had Milton Friedman on the side of Bill Maher. You would have had Frederick Hayek on the side of Bill Maher. You would have had every economics department from Harvard to the University of Southern California saying this will not work. It will increase the price of goods. But as was put in a tweet that I absolutely loved by somebody, I have absolutely no idea who they are, Young Macro, said very well on X, I'm generally a staunch defender of the economics profession, but the fact that an 80-year-old reality show star and his ragtag crew of like 5 Alabama University undergrads are running circles around 10,000 PhDs for a year now does raise some questions we cannot ignore. Those questions are, what is economics? Is it a science? How has he made a fool, once again, of the experts? And the answer in part is because economics is rarely a field of expertise. What is economics? It's the prediction and the evaluation of literally hundreds of millions, billions of decisions every day. There's 330 million of us in the United States of America. How many economic decisions do you make every day? What you're going to eat for lunch, what you're going to buy for breakfast, what kind of toothpaste you buy at the household, where you go to fill up your gasoline. Every day you make economic decisions in the hundreds, if not thousands. Every day. What clothes you buy and wear. Everything is an economic decision. Multiply that by 330 million Americans, and how many economic decisions are you trying to project into the future? Oh, okay, some guys are better than others. Certainly some people know how to make money better than others. But this is nothing like a science. This is much more akin to art. And it should raise questions about the value of certainty, at least, in economics. To continue to see it as a science. That doesn't mean it doesn't need to be studied or tried to understand, but some humility when you're getting run circles around you. Circles, deals, wins, the art of the deal by Donald Trump. A gunman goes into a high-rise in New York City to the NFL offices and takes aim, killing 4. A mob in Cincinnati beats on 2 white people attending a jazz fest, raising a question about how do you stop bad guys? Whether individuals and lone wolves, terrorists, or mobs. And I have the answer, at least I believe the answer. You stop a bad guy with a gun by a good guy with a gun. We're going to break that down with a panel of Republicans, Gen Z, when we come back on Will Kane Country. Man, they're trying to make Sydney Sweeney a Nazi. Let's ask some Gen Zers. It is Will Kane Country. Streaming live at Fox News YouTube and Fox News Facebook. We're here Monday through Thursday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time. We want you here. Set a reminder, subscribe to our individual page channels. You'll see us on those Fox News channels, but you can become a member of our community by subscribing to those page channels, and you're a member of the Willisha. Jackson Gosnell is an independent journalist. He's the host of Jackson Gosnell Live, and Brillen Hollyhand is a RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair. She's also the host. He's also the host of the Brillen Hollyhand Show, and they just both join us now. What's up, fellas?
Thanks for having us.
Good to be with you.
Tuesday.
Glad to have you both on here. You both are Gen Z. So what does that mean? Let's start with defining our generations, okay? I believe Gen Zers, if I know this correctly, are they roughly like 16 to 26, 16 to 30? Is that the age of a Gen Zer? How old are you fellas? Brillen, how old are you?
I'm 19. I start college this semester at Auburn, and I think it's typically around that age, the 16 to 18 range, and then we go up to sometimes 35. It just kind of depends on the group.
All right. And Jackson?
I'm 21, and yeah, I agree. It's right around like 28 or so.
Okay, we got a War Eagle here, and we're represented well on the table, by the way.
I
we
love
got
it,
Auburn
War Eagle.
represented. Where are you in school or working right now, Jackson?
I go to the University of South Carolina.
All right, the other USC represented here. USC
right.
and Auburn represented here on Will Kane Country. Okay, fellas, let's start light before we have to get heavy. I don't know that I fully understand this story. Sydney Sweeney, bet you fellas know who that is. Sydney Sweeney is, with her new ad with American Eagle, being accused, I guess, of being a Nazi? I don't know. The ad campaign features Sydney Sweeney in a good-looking pair of jeans. You know, she's blonde, she's blue-eyed, and in it, she like spray paints out or crosses out good genes, I believe, Genes, with jeans, Jeans. That's led to headlines like this from Yahoo. Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ad faces backlash for racial undertone. The Washington Post. How American Eagle Sydney Sweeney good genes ad went wrong. NBC News. American Eagle sparks backlash by touting Sydney Sweeney's great genes. In fact, here, let's take a look to help us understand a little more. There's a little bit of video.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
There you have it. Sydney Sweeney has great genes. I don't get it, fellas. Help me understand. How does this make Sydney Sweeney a Nazi? We'll start with you, Brillen.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, what I think the best part of this is Sydney Sweeney didn't even say a word, and she still triggered the entire left. She didn't give a political speech. She didn't put on a MAGA hat. She didn't attend a Trump rally. All she did was promote a gene brand and have an American flag, and that right there proves just how fragile wokeness has become today. I mean, the American flag being controversial to some people. I mean, to some people, flying the pride flags outside of our federal buildings is a little controversial. Yet we don't have people uproar over that. It's a crazy concept to just see just how fragile and emotional they've become, and that's why they've scared off young men. They're doing this whole study, spending millions and millions of dollars at the DNC right now of how did we lose young men last election? I can tell you it's stuff like this. So first of all, not just wanting to embrace Sydney Sweeney as a campaign, but second, attacking her for being pro-American. It's an odd concept, Will.
You know, Jackson, I wonder, is it the invocation of genetics? Are we now to deny that genetics has some role in science, that it has some role in reality? We all know that genetics can lead to height, good looks, athletic ability, intelligence. But Donald Trump loves to invoke genes as well. He's got good genes. He says it a lot, you know. And we used to say that. That used to be a thing we said more, good genes. Maybe we didn't say it like Donald Trump. But now it's like that has become the acknowledgement of genetics, something bad. Or maybe it said it was described as good genes, which I don't even think they talked about. She was suggesting it was a wordplay for her blue jeans. But I don't get it. Like all of a sudden now, genes are Nazi?
Right. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. I think Harris Faulkner said it best on Outnumbered. They're going to look for something, right? You're going to find something if you're looking for something. But the normal person, this wouldn't even cross their mind that this is racist or whatever they're alleging. I think it's absolutely bananas. And I think people need to get a job and find something to do, because if you have enough time to go and analyze ads, you should be working and contributing to society. You know, I think that attacking her personally is just going the extra step that we know the left to do. They try and cancel people. They should have figured out that cancel culture doesn't work. I mean, we saw that in the last election, people rejected all of this, especially young people. People are tired of having to tiptoe around and be careful and talk in these big word salads to get their point across because they don't want to offend anybody. It turns out to stuff like this. I'm astonished that the media is still writing headlines like this, because you would think they would learn that the people aren't buying this, but apparently they're not.
Yeah, I agree. It does. But it does feel like a cornered or wounded animal. They're just lashing out at random stuff right now, but I'm not sure their claws are hitting anything. Meanwhile, it was all the news coverage yesterday. So a 27-year-old man played high school football, leaving a note that suggested he might be suffering from CTE. Certainly had mental health conditions. From what I understand, the reporting is now that he had 2 mental health holds. A mental health hold is when you're taken to a hospital and held for 72 hours in his life. Walked into a building in downtown or midtown Manhattan and seemingly targeted the offices of the NFL. It was home to Blackstone, KPMG, this high-rise, and the NFL. He ended up in the property management offices of the 33rd floor. He killed 4 people between the lobby of the building and those offices. And this is a little bit of how it was covered yesterday on CNN.
Among them that they did get, they do know what he looks like. Sunglasses, mustache, male, possibly white.
Interesting. Pictures were out almost immediately. He didn't look white. He's not white. But that's CNN's reflex reaction. And then there's the Cincinnati police chief who, then there is Curtis Sliwa, who's running for mayor in New York City as a Republican, talking about some of the issues here and what we can maybe do to stop incidences like this. Here's Curtis Sliwa.
Sean, we don't have enough police. We desperately need more police, and we need photo recognition technology so that they can spot people right away with the technology we have, walking around boldly, brazenly with guns, so we can preemptively do something. And clearly this man was on a mission. But my concern, Sean, is there are potential terrorists watching how easy it is to walk through the streets of New York City, to carry an AR-15, to walk into a corporate world headquarters that represents capitalism and then slaughter people indiscriminately.
So we have mental health issues. Curtis Lewa says we need more police. And then finally, Congressman Dan Goldman of New York says it's not yet another example of the need for gun control and banning, quote unquote, assault weapons. I would defy Dan Goldman and any other Democrat to define an assault weapon. They can't define a woman. I know they can't define an assault weapon. But you have three potential issues being raised in the first 24 hours. Mental health, guns, the need for more police. What do you think, Brillen?
Well, Will, it's after tragedies like this. I mean, the left loves to make Republicans the boogeyman in the situation. I've got news for them, though. I mean, it's not the NRA that's committing these mass shootings. It's criminals that the left themselves let back out onto the streets. I mean, you just shared it. Their solution time and time again to this gun violence is to disarm the good guys. But the real solution here is what you hit on in your monologue. It's to arm the right people to let them protect us in this situation, to stop him from getting to that 34, to prevent that in the lobby with armed security. I mean, this is also one of those tragedies that the left always loves to exploit for emotions to attempt to win over Gen Z because they can't win us on principles alone. And at the end of the day, I mean, when an evil person walks into a room with a gun, our generation wants the good guys ready to stop him. It's that simple. That's what we've had in schools. It's been successful the past few years, and we would love to see more of that, not this ideological, craziness that the left continues to put out there. And it's why Gen Z continues to move away from the left, because they put crazy stuff like this.
Okay, that's what I believe as well, Brillen. As you mentioned, I do believe the only solution for a bad guy with a gun ultimately is a good guy with a gun. And I'm going to explain why in just a moment, but I want to do it by process of elimination. I want to go through these other things. And Jackson, I'll go to you on this. Let's talk for a minute about mental health. This guy bought a gun apparently when he was 22. Between the ages of 22 and 27, he had 2 mental health holds. That means he was taken to the hospital and held for 72 hours. Now, some are pointing out, shouldn't that mean maybe a gun confiscation? If he bought the gun after that, that's a whole different problem. But people are saying that doesn't show up on a background check. That's HIPAA protected. Your health issues are not available for things like a background check. And I do sit there and wonder, first on mental health, like we can all acknowledge we should and we have. That's a problem. We have a crisis of mental health. But I don't know that we can solve this legally by looking at it through the prism of mental health. We can maybe parentally, we can maybe individually, we can maybe even culturally and as a society. But I don't know how you take away someone's rights, and people may not like this, because they have a health issue, even a mental health issue. We may think it's right to do so, but I think we should take a minute to indulge it. Like, well, does depression mean you lose your rights? Does a bipolar disorder mean you lose your rights? Does ADHD mean you lose your rights? Like, what are the issues? What is the mental health? Who is the expert? Who's the psychologist? Where is it that you lose your rights? And I find that a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so, too. I agree that there's a mental health crisis in this country. Unfortunately, there's been no real wonderful way to deal with it, and I think everybody's still figuring that out. And then to your point about the background check, and not only the mental health concern being HIPAA protected, but also that was in the future after he purchased the gun, from what I understand. And so, I mean, what, these people wanted the background check to be a psychic and foresee the mental health problems in the future? You can't do that. They happened at a later time. So that argument that should have been on a background check, we should just get rid of that immediately, because that's unfathomable at the time that he went and got his gun. But furthermore, on the mental health front, look, I think, people have diabetes. We don't prevent them from going and eating at candy stores. So I don't know if the mental health thing is going to get people's guns taken away, or if it should. I mean, certainly it has in previous situations. I guess we'll have to see with time. But unfortunately, the mental health issue is big, and we don't have a perfect solution.
Well, and you have to kind of acknowledge the obvious, which is I think everybody listening and watching right now is like, I don't want sick people, mentally sick people, or insane people to have a gun. Everybody can say that.
Right.
But then we have to move beyond saying it. Like, how do you implement that? That's a really, really hard thing to implement. Not just practically, like, can you implement it, but like, how do you even draw up the laws on that? Like, when do you write the law down? Who's going to diagnose somebody? What doctor are you giving the power to essentially start stripping rights? This is a right. It's a Second Amendment right. What doctor are you giving that power to? And what's the threshold? What does the person have to be diagnosed with, acting like? So I agree. I don't want sick people with guns, but I don't know how to even write. We should all together. If you're in the comment section, I ask you, be a lawyer, be a legislator, write a law. I'm serious. Go to the comment section. I'd love to hear from you, Alicia. Write something down that you think is bulletproof that wouldn't be abused or misapplied, even misapplied to average Americans. I don't know that we can come up with a neat solution. Taking me to number 2. And both of you can jump in. Roland Jackson, if you have something, you jump in. Curtis Lewa, we need more cops. Okay, that's also an easy thing to say. But I don't think it's a solution. Yeah, we need good cops. We don't need cities like New York and Cincinnati, for that matter, where it seems to be there's not enough protection. But you're never going to be able to hire enough cops to stop all the bad guys. What are you going to get to? A 1-to-1 ratio? Like a cop for every bad guy, a cop for every bad thing that happens? They can't be everywhere all at once. You're not going to solve this by simply throwing defensive law enforcement measures at it. That's what I think, Brillen.
I agree. And I think there's two sides to that. You've got Slilo, who wants, more cops, and then Mamdani, if he wants to completely defund the police. And who knows how many more lives would have unfortunately been taken if no police were able to make it to that 34th floor and, thankfully end this situation. Who knows what would have continued to happen if that horror, atrocity was actually put into place if that election does happen. And this should be a wake-up call to New York. I was there last week with Fox. People on the streets were terrified of this. The young people I talked to were saying, why are our peers turning socialist and wanting to embrace that? It's going to make our streets more dangerous than they already are. This right here, if anything good can come out of it, should be a wake-up call in that situation coming up. But I'll also say about what he said towards the end of his comment last night, I think it was Hannity's show, about wanting to have more of the surveillance and security cameras like that. I understand the intention there. I get what he's trying to get out of preventing something like this before he gets in the building, of setting up some red flag system. But that's where we get into a conversation like you just brought up of getting to be something like China, where everywhere Americans go, they're surveyed. And that's something that we've obviously been very anti with the NSA doing, of every action that we do here in this free nation of America being surveyed. I don't really think that that's something that patriots would want to get a part of. Yes, should there be some type of surveillance system to prevent this? Possibly. But I don't think what he was saying, on every street corner, we can have a camera lit up on a light post preventing a situation like this.
I agree.
I think that's when we start looking like China.
I would just add,
that's a potential for massive
I would
abuse.
just add, sorry, I was going to jump in here if you don't mind. I would just add to what Brylan said. I agree with the intent. I also do have to say that, Brylan, you were in the city last week, so was I, and I noticed a lack of police. There was not as many as had been around in previous years that I'd gone into Manhattan and other places. So I do agree that more police is necessary, but to your point, we don't want to be under continued surveillance as though we're in China. And I understand the prevention mechanisms that they want to put in place. At the same rate, we have to do better. I don't know what that looks like. Everybody always says it, but police alone is not the answer, but I certainly believe it's a critical component that we do need more police in New York.
It is.
For better or worse.
It is. I just don't think you can police state and surveillance yourself into utopia. I just don't.
That's fair.
You're still
That
going
is
to end
fair.
up
I agree with that.
There are bad guys who will do bad things. All right. Now, then the left will say, well, but there's bad guys in every society. There's people with mental health issues in every society. It only happens in the United States because of the guns. All right. And then they'll go on the gun angle. And I'm going to give this its attention for a moment before I get to my solution. Dan Goldman, we need to put in an assault weapon ban. This guy in New York had, I believe it was an M4, an AR-15 style platform gun, which means a semi-automatic rifle, basically. But they couldn't define that. And I'm not just being hard on them. Almost no one can. It's because it's a legal construct. It's a made-up term and a marketing term in the gun industry. Like, what is an assault weapon? What makes something an assault weapon? The fact that it's semi-automatic? Well, we got semi-automatic pistols. There's semi-automatic shotguns. There's semi-automatic every form of gun. Is it because they're rifles? Well, we have rifles of every kind. Bolt action, lever action, hunting rifles. Is it when you combine semi-automatic rifle, a rifle platform and a semi-automatic? What makes something an assault weapon? And you can't. They tried. They tried this in the 90s to set a definition, and you can never. It's moving, partially because technology is moving. Gun technology, like every other technology, moves and moves and moves. And I just think, you know, it's the United States of America. It's not Sweden. You're not going to be able to do away with the Second Amendment. You're not going to be able to confiscate guns. The AR-15 platform is the most popular gun in America. What are you going to do? And the answer is, when they keep going back to this, to me, is they're avoiding a solution. By picking something, I know they can say Australia does it, but guess what? This ain't Australia, mate. This is the U.S. Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it is the United States. We can't just jump in and lock people's guns away. And we've been hearing about assault weapons for ages, and I'm right there with you. I don't know what an assault weapon is because there's no clear definition. It seems to change with the wind. Look, I think that we've got to figure out a way to police, but also allow people to exercise their rights to keep and bear arms. You know, I live in a home where we have guns because we want to protect ourselves, and there are a lot of good people who do have guns. Having said that, there is, of course, bad people with guns too, as we saw just last night. But oftentimes, and I would say overwhelmingly, the good outweighs the bad. I mean, certainly we'll talk about this for days and the press will write every headline imaginable. But that is a rare instance of what most gun owners are, which is law-abiding citizens who want to protect themselves. And if you can't define what an assault weapon is, or you can't give us some real clear indication of why you hate guns other than the fact that you're a leftist and you're just totally against guns, then, you know, I don't understand what we keep having this discussion for about taking guns away and trying to lock people away from their rights.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
let's stay
I
on the
think
note
we
of guns,
saw-
but let's move it forward.
Yeah.
Let's move forward real quick, Brilliant. I want to now set up the positive potential solution that I offer. And I'm going to do this by also bringing in the thing that happened in Cincinnati, where a couple was beaten brutally at the Jazz Fest by a mob of people. We talked yesterday about the racial components of this, but there's another component of this that I find interesting, and that is how little everyone else did. First of all, here's the police chief of Cincinnati talking about how many people actually even called 911.
For us to have 100 or so people down there involved in and or watching this event, recording with their cell phones, and for us to get only one phone call of this incident is unacceptable in this city. One person did the right thing and called 911.
One call to 911. Okay, now I'm going to tie these two stories together. I saw a picture of the thing that happened in New York at the Blackstone offices. It's really something. It looks like guy, I don't know, there might have been some gals in there as well, in the office started piling furniture against the door. I mean, it's a massive pile of couches and chairs and furniture to bar this guy in. And good for them. That's quick thinking. That's quick action. But there's something about that I'm thought, why do we have to be sitting ducks? Why do we have to cower? Why do we have to protect? Why do we have to just barricade? At some point, when it comes to these bad guys, good people have to go on offense. And in order to do that, because we can't have cops in every room, we can't have a 1-to-1 ratio, we don't want a surveillance state, we have concerns about whether or not we can apply a mental health check that actually works. To me, it's good guys with guns. It's that when that guy opens fire, he needs to know that fire is coming back at him. And I've thought about security everywhere I go, right? And the truth is, as I sit here today inside this studio, I think it's the best security I could hope for. If somebody comes in this studio, they're getting fire returned at them. I think the answer is good guys with the guns. Go ahead, Brolin.
Well, I think good guys with guns founded this country, and it's not a crazy novel idea for good guys with guns to continue to protect the country today. I think in both situations, you look at something where there should have been more good guys. There's an image going around on social media of this person in New York walking down the sidewalk and walking into this building with an obviously large assault weapon, if that's what the left wants to call it, on his side. He could have been taken out by a good guy with a gun on the street before he even made it in the building. Unfortunately, there weren't any of that situation. You talk about the situation in Cincinnati where people wanted to be these social media warriors and take that and put it on their social media page instead of, protecting these people, their fellow Americans. It takes people, not laws, to help each other. It took those good guys with guns to revolt
Yes.
against England. It didn't, the Declaration of Independence was a great document, but it actually took the people getting with their guns, riding on horseback and protecting this nation. We need some good, bold, strong men today. And that's what we saw last November. Good guys got off the sidelines, voted for the president, voted against having their freedom stripped away by Kamala Harris. And thankfully, that's what Gen Z wants. We don't want our freedom stripped.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ultimately, it's not laws, it's people. Jackson.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think we should encourage more young people to get their concealed carry permits. I'm planning on getting mine shortly because I feel like there's been a decline in the number of young people who have sought that out, and I think it's necessary because we live in a society where there are unfortunately bad guys with guns, as we saw yesterday, and there needs to be more good guys with guns, to your point. So I completely agree with you. I think we need to sort of revive this generation and the younger people who are 21 who can have a handgun to go and take that first step and get their concealed carry permit. Learn how to handle the gun responsibly, learn when to use it appropriately, and really protect yourself at all costs and those around you. So I think that we should really harness that in people our age and start to get that jump started a little bit more than what we've seen in previous years.
Okay, I've got two Gen Z Republicans with me here to talk about things that I think offer a perspective that I'm not capable of having. We've got Brylan Hollyhand and Jackson Gosnell here. I want to show you this new poll out from Fox News. This is a Fox News poll, concerns about illegal immigration. All right, this asks people why they are concerned about illegal immigration, okay? And the number one answer, 39% on what concerns them about illegal immigration, is overburdening government programs and services. Coming in second at 16% is leading to an increase in crime. Third, taking away jobs from U.S. citizens came in at 14%. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, that's illustrated by the light blue figures here on the screen. In yellow, that is the 10% that say leading to an increase in terrorism. You just heard that from mayoral candidate in New York City, Curtis Sliwa. And in purple, 9% changing the culture of the country. I'm going to ask you guys both. I'm going to ask you. You don't get to pick two, and you certainly don't get to do all the above. Which of these categories, Brylan, I'll go to you, is number one for you on your biggest concern for illegal immigration?
Absolutely terrorism. And I think that that's the biggest thing that concerns Americans. Even when we were in that kind of waiting period after the Iran strike, that was, a great bold action by the president. We were then in that situation of what sleeper cells came across the border, the millions of people that, came across under Biden. Where are they? What can they do? What could happen in somewhere like New York? That was a genuine fear. That's still a fear today with any type of sleeper cell group. I mean, these polls confirm what we saw in the last election. Americans want their borders back, and the only ones who don't want borders are the ones who live behind the walls. I mean, we've seen the videos that have gone viral on social media. Democrats used to call illegal immigration a crisis, and now they're just calling it diversity. But the voters aren't genuinely buying it. It's not xenophobia. I mean, well, this is common sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think your concern is validated by what we saw about the number of people on the terror watch list or terror watch list countries that were coming in under the Biden administration. But, Jackson, which one of these would you say is your number one concern on illegal immigration?
I agree that I think crime is the number one concern. You look at what happened with Laken Riley. You look at what happened with Nate Baker at the University of South Carolina, where I go to school. These were people who were killed by illegal immigrants in our country. And so, sure, I think there are a lot of people who come here for a better life and, maybe they cross over illegally, but they're here doing the right thing. All right, I have a little bit more of a heart for that situation. But we have a lot of criminals here, and unfortunately, they all get put into the same basket because if you have a few bad apples, they all turn to bad apples, unfortunately. And so I think crime is a huge concern. I'm giving you two examples, but I could go on and on and on. During the Biden years, we had an influx of people coming into this country, many of which were violent criminals, gang members. They came from insane asylums and other places, and they wreaked havoc on our country. Now, to this poll's credit, I agree that we shouldn't be wasting money from government programs, but that is certainly not as pressing to me as the risk of violence, crime, and terrorism from these illegals in our country.
Well, I don't think there's any wrong answer on this, but my curiosity is where the Gen Z mind is on what is the biggest concern for you.
Yeah.
I'll also open this up to the audience. If you want to jump into the YouTube, Facebook comments, I am curious of yours as well. Again, your options are, if you just had to pick one of the five, it is overburdening government programs and services, leading to an increase in crime, number 2, taking jobs away from Americans, number 3, leading to an increase in terrorism, number 4, and changing the culture of the country, number 5. You know, the overburdening government services one is one that resonates with me, particularly right now because, you know, we can talk about, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, all of these programs, but the one that gets me is when I start hearing about, like, all the stuff that will go in the wake of a disaster, you know, be it a fire in Maui or a fire in Los Angeles. And look, everyone, regardless of immigration status, suffers at the hands of a catastrophe, of a natural disaster. But the purpose of paying tax dollars is to help the people of the country, and they need no more help than when they are hit with something unavoidable, a natural disaster. And it really, I think, highlights a bad problem when, A, you got deficits, B, you can't afford everything, and C, now we really need you, government, and that money is going to people that are not citizens of this country. But that being said, for me, in 2 days, you can zoom back in on this, mine's purple. Mine's the 9%, changing the culture of the country. And it's not, you know, I mean, it is. It is cultural superiority. It is cultural superiority. I do believe there's an American culture. I do believe it's our defining characteristic. I believe it is what has given rise to the idea of American exceptionalism. I believe the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are the fruits of that culture. The culture is not the fruits of the document. The document is the culture of the fruits. One of my friends famously once said, you could Xerox copy the Constitution of the United States and airlift it and drop it over Bangladesh. Tomorrow, it doesn't turn into Alabama. That's not what happens. It's culture. It's people. And there are great parts of every culture. Every culture. Great parts of the Mexican culture. Great parts of the Canadian culture. Great parts of every culture. That being said, that's why we understand the concept of assimilation. That's why we understand the concept of controlled immigration. That's why we make sure people that come to the United States want to be Americans, not just economic advantages, right? Not just come here to get rich, but understand why this country is one where you can get rich. And it is that culture. And if you have unfettered illegal immigration, people that don't assimilate, don't speak the language, don't understand the values, well, I think if that's the case, yeah, crime is going to be a problem. Terrorism is going to be a problem, but you're going to have a lot of problems. You know, Bangladesh has crime and poverty. Bangladesh has terrorism and corruption. You know, I think I'm in the 9%, which appears to be the minority. Last word to both of you on this, Jackson.
I agree with you. I do think, though, crime is more pressing for me, but I agree. We have a great American culture. It's why we're the most powerful and greatest country on earth. And I think that there's something to be said about that. Obviously, people should long for that culture if they want to come and live here. But I do think that crime is a real serious problem, and we should focus on that as well.
I agree with Jackson, and I agree with Will.
Right.
I think that America is known for its culture around the world. And yes, we can be this melting pot of different people coming in and bringing different foods and bringing different traditions. But at the end of the day, it's still America, and you're not coming here to change our culture. We'll open our arms, we'll give you jobs, we'll give you the opportunity of citizenship, but we're not telling you to strip us of the culture that we fought for and defended for 250 years now. And when our founding fathers didn't fight off the Brits to have people come in and just completely rip our culture away from us on our own land, I think that's where kind of our patriotism riles up in this generation, and we say, no, you're not going to come in here and change that. Bring whatever food you like, bring the traditions, teach us about your customs, but don't change our customs and tell us we're crazy for having them. It's wild.
And I feel the same way about all
it.
the people moving
Yes.
south from up north. So just FYI if anyone's watching.
Is that a shot at Canada?
Well,
Oklahoma?
maybe just the northern states. We have a lot of people moving south, and they want to bring their liberal policies. We're okay. You can leave that for your culture up there.
All right. Good stuff. I loved having you guys on. You can check out Jackson. He's the host of the Jackson Gosnell live show. He's on X at Jackson Gosnell. And you can check out Brylan at the Brylan Hollyhan show as well. Intend to have you guys back. Next time I won't mispronounce your name for the first 2/3 of the interview, Brylan. Because it'll be the second times we ever met. Not Brylan, Brylan. All right. And Jackson. Thank you, fellas, for being on Will Kane Country.
Thank you, sir. Have a good week.
All right. Take care. Okay. I hope you stuck in with the tease at the pre-show conversation. You might have seen the video. Phoenix Mercury WNBA player got her wig snatched. We need to break it down frame by frame because the lulls and shock are multiple. Watch it with me next on Will Kane Country. Frame by frame, moment by moment, because it's not just funny that she lost her wig in the WNBA. It's funny how everyone reacted. It is Will Kane Country, streaming live at the Fox News YouTube and Fox News Facebook every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Subscribe, set a reminder, jump into the comments section. I've asked a couple of questions, in fact, today of you, the Willisha, and two-a-days Dan has some of the results. So, Dan, I asked, could anyone write a law that actually addresses mental health and gun ownership? I asked that. And what was the other poll question that you've already put up and gotten an answer from the Willisha?
We did your biggest concern regarding illegal immigration. I can only put up 4 options. So out of the 5, I put up 4. I put up strain on government programs, rising crime, fewer jobs for Americans, and terrorism risk. Right now, strain on government programs is leading 37%. Rising crime is 25%. Fewer jobs for Americans, 11%, and terrorism risk, 27%.
Oh, that one's a little higher than the poll at large.
Yep.
I wish you would have put in the one that I suggested as my major concern, is that it's changing culture. I would be curious where the audience is on that. You know, I do recognize that it only came in at 9%, so it's somewhat of a minority position on the concerns. But I am curious, the audience's perspective. If you want, even though Dan didn't have that as an option, drop it in the comments section and let me know. Like, is it not that big of a concern for you? After hearing my case, is it a bigger concern for you? And I'd also love to hear from you on the laws that you'd write. And I'll tell you what we'll do. Tomorrow, either by the end of the show today, and if not that, tomorrow, we'll revisit some of your answers because we always want to include you on the show here on Will Kane Country. So we'll collect some of your comments, and I'll address them tomorrow. How does that sound? Right here.
Love it.
On Will Kane Country. Okay. Let's replay this. This is recently in the WNBA, as I've learned, the Phoenix Mercury. Guys, we could do a quiz on how many WNBA teams you could name. Like, in fact, Dan, pull those up. Let's just do that in a minute. After we play the clip, let's just do a quiz on how many WNBA teams, like you tell me it's Las Vegas, and I say the Aces. I happen to know that, and I'm going to tell you why in a moment. But let's see how many of those we could do after we enjoyed this moment from the WNBA.
And it bounced around a lot, but at the end, it went through the rim. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. She's going to go head to the back. Oh, no.
Timeout called for Copper to deal with the malfunction. Shakira, beautiful pass at Christie.
Okay, it's a 2-minute long clip. You've enjoyed the first 30 or 40 seconds. What happens is a Phoenix Mercury player playing defense, I don't know if it just fell or if she got it snatched, but loses her wig onto the court. You can hear the announcers, oh no, oh no. There's a little laugh in the announcer's voice. She describes it as a malfunction. Here's what happens, and I think it's my 4 favorite things from this. Here we go. Ready? 2 days, 10 foot. Here are my 4 favorite observations. We'll go through them one at a time. Number one, a lot of people yesterday on social media said this to me. Whoa, you're a professional athlete and you're wearing a wig? That in and of itself right there seems to be an anachronism. Like, I guess that's true. That one didn't resonate with me at first. But yeah, if you're running around sweating, dynamic movement, like, does a wig fit the job description? Does it not inhibit? We've seen NFL players get their dreads pulled out the back of the helmet. You know, we've seen chains get lost, jewelry. So I mean, I do think there is a little bit. How much fashion, how much vanity is the threshold limit when the job is be the best you can be physically? Go ahead, Tinfoil.
Do you want them to go full Jordan and just shave their heads? Is that what you want?
I don't know what I want. I want them to play good basketball. Is that too much to ask?
Yes,
I mean,
these
that
are
seems
women.
to be the thing.
I would be worried about getting it pulled off for sure. They're my main concern.
Okay, well, that brings me to number two, my second favorite observation. She immediately sprints for the locker room.
Sprints.
Like, it's like a fast-forwarded scene out of Game of Thrones when the lady's walking down the alleyways and everybody's yelling shame. Like, she is not going to be seen without her wig. I mean, by the way, she doesn't know. She didn't get subbed out. She didn't wait to see if there was a timeout. I don't know if there was a whistle before she was gone, but if you're going to wear a wig,
let's play it again.
I think then you should accept the risks of the wig being snatched or falling off and not be like, I'm out immediately to the locker room, putting your team at a disadvantage, at least for a little while.
4 on 5.
You know? It's 4 on 5.
Cap?
Where's Shelly?
Yeah.
In the locker room, putting her hair back on.
She's gone. Gone as fast as possible.
They have a baseball cap on the sideline or
Gone
something,
as
just in
fast
case.
as possible. Keep an extra one? Is that what you said, Tinfoil? Yeah. I don't think you can be seen.
Like hockey
putting
players
on
with extra sticks.
That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Then there's this, and this is actually my favorite observation from it. It's the behavior of the television crew and the announcers, okay? First of all, while the announcer can't help but giggle a little bit and go, oh no, she never addresses to the audience what happened. The viewer is virtually lost but for that one little clip that you saw of the lady running back to the locker room. Okay, but that means, as 99.9% of the people that understand this story, you've consumed it through social media where you got to see it over and over. But for the 0.1% that actually watched the game, you'd have no idea what happened. None. And that's the job of the television crew and the announcer, to tell me what happened. She never said the wig fell off. She described it as a malfunction. And this is my favorite, the television crew never played a replay. They quickly cut to the Washington Mystics player hitting a three. They hit the rim 4 times. But she hit a three, and they cut to that. So they wouldn't replay what happened, and she wouldn't describe what happened. And I'm asking you, why? Is it so bad and so taboo that you can't say it?
It's embarrassing.
I mean, dude, in the NFL and the NBA, I have watched replays of dudes' legs snapping.
True.
Multiple times.
What's the equivalent?
Like, what was the guy in the NCAA tournament? This is a good 10 years back. Do you remember him? Who did he play for?
Yeah.
It was horrible. Wasn't he driving the lane and going for a layup, and he came down and his tibia just into. And we saw that. Oh, Kevin was his first name, by the way.
Kevin where?
That. I don't remember what team, and I don't remember.
Louisville.
Yeah. Houston?
Louisville.
I knew they were wearing. It's funny you say it, Dan. I knew his first name was Kevin,
Yeah.
and I knew they were wearing red. That's all I remember.
2013.
Houston. Kevin Ware, Louisville.
Let's play it. No, I'm kidding.
It was awful.
We had to replay that on Dan's show over and over again. I almost threw up.
We've seen.
Theismann.
We saw Joe Theismann's leg, by the way.
Alex Smith, Will Spaghetti.
A ton, right? So, and there is a point now in sports, they won't show that. Now when you're watching the NFL, if there's a bad one, you have to go to Twitter or X to really know what happened because they won't show you now. But for a long time, they did show you. I think their standard is they show you once, maybe. I do think you get to see it once on TV, and then they stop. And that's probably the right call. But I didn't know the standard was 0 replays on a wig. 0. So I want to know
still say.
why. And you can't even say it. You can't even say it. She lost her wig.
What's the equivalent in the NBA if this happened? Like, I don't know, your pants fell down or something like that, where you'd run off the locker room.
Let me ask you a question. If a dude was de-pantsed, okay,
like fully
NBA
jockstrap everything.
And, okay, but all you saw was the back end. Let's just go with the back end. Okay, bare ass. I think they'd show you. And I think they'd laugh and talk about it.
Because male nudity's funny.
But a female wig is not? I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I think this has something to do, if we're being honest, and that's my job is to be honest, it has something to do with black women in hair and wigs, and it's all so sensitive, and therefore you can't talk about it, and it's a ridiculous standard. It's a ridiculous standard. By the way, to your note, Dan, who was the NFL player at the Combine where his shorts busted open and his junk was flying? He was running the 40. And my man didn't stop. He didn't run to the locker room.
It didn't help him.
He didn't even drop his hands in cover. He's like, I'm running the 40, and he finished the 40 with things flying everywhere. So I'm just saying it's sports.
Lenny Kravitz kept playing. Lenny Kravitz kept playing when the front of his pants split. I'm just saying.
Okay, and then the fourth and final observation on this. This part is not part of the clip. All that we're doing, right, which is obvious in human nature, laughing at the situation, apparently that happened in the stands as well. Somebody laughed, somebody made fun, and guess what the reaction was from the WNBA? Booted. That guy out of the game. They stopped the game, they discussed it, they found the fan, they booted the fan for laughing and mocking at a player losing her wig. This is the league that is saying, pay us what you owe us.
Can you name the teams?
Which I missed while I was on vacation. Pay us what you owe us, but don't you dare laugh.
Oh, that was the big thing that we didn't do.
All right, give me a quiz.
Okay.
Give me a quiz.
All right,
go.
Let's do some music here. All right, Atlanta what? The team in Atlanta is called what in the WNBA? Can you guys guess?
So one of the things they do in the WNBA is they play off the NBA teams' names, right? Like Phoenix Sun, Phoenix Mercury.
Not this one.
Oh, really? Because I was going in the bird category. Hawks. What is the Atlanta?
Well, it's something birds.
Atlanta.
You could do. I can't even explain it. I'll give it away. Atlanta
Flyers.
This one should be. I'm just guessing. Just given Atlanta's history, it would be something like Phoenix, right?
Wrong on all accounts. So I'm going to give you the answer.
No, because I'm getting the guys. Let me see if the guys, Scott and Ed, are trying to contribute here. What? Atlanta. That's the Minnesota Lynx, I think. You were so certain. You said it to me 5 times.
Wow.
Scott. He said Atlanta Lynx, and that's not right.
That is not correct.
That's not right. It's Minnesota Lynx. What is it? Do it, Ace.
The Atlanta Dream. They are the Atlanta Dream.
The Atlanta Dream. Okay. Yeah. Nope. Did not know that. Give me another one.
All right. This one you might know because it's been in the news. Chicago.
I got that.
Yeah.
That's the Chicago Sky.
Correct. That is an easy one.
Angel Reese playing Darth Vader. Put them on the map.
And then
she's the league villain.
My home state of Connecticut is what?
Sun.
Yes, because of
Sun. Mohegan Sun, the casino.
Yeah, there you go.
And Indian
Boom.
Reservation.
That's right.
And then I'm 2 for 3. I want to keep it going.
All right. There's only 12, so. And then your hometown, Dallas.
Wings. Star.
I would hope
Paige
you get that
Beckers.
one.
First pick in the WNBA draft.
That's right. Number 5.
What am I now? I'm 3 for 4.
Yep. Number 5, you'll get this one easy. Indiana. Where
I know it's Caitlin Clark, but I'm not going to get it easy. Oh, Fever.
Yes.
Fever.
You got it. Then Las Vegas should be easy.
I said that earlier. The Aces.
That's right.
I can tell you why I know that after the quiz. Go ahead.
So you're 5 for 6. Los Angeles, L.A.
Sparks.
That is correct.
Sparks.
That is correct. 6 for 7. And then you're going to get this one. You already said it. Minnesota.
Lynx.
That's correct. 7 for 8. New York. New York.
Liberty.
That is correct. Phoenix.
Look at me in the WNBA.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Mercury.
Oh, yes, sir.
Mercury.
Yes, sir. All
Although
right.
I didn't know it earlier. When this whole came up, that's the reason we started the quiz, and I didn't know Phoenix earlier. So
2 more.
half credit.
And then we got the Seattle what? You should know this.
Oh, Seattle.
Has to do with Seattle.
Needles? Pointers? Needles? Space needles?
Drug doers?
Space needle pointers?
No, it has to do with
Sonics. They should have played off that.
Has to do. What is Seattle known for besides drug use?
Coffee?
Nope. Yeah, also that, but not that. Something else.
Seattle Roasters?
Something that's not that people don't love so much about Seattle.
That they don't love? Well, here's what I got. I got Mariners, Sonics, Kraken, Seahawks. I've got the Space Needle. I've got coffee. I have no idea. What is it?
It is the Seattle Storm because it rains a lot.
Oh.
There you go.
Seattle Storm. Okay. All right.
All right.
Let's finish this thing off.
And then Washington is last.
Mystics.
That's correct.
Which, by the way, I only know from this story. When I saw the uniforms, I was like, who is that? They're playing. And then it said Mystics, and I was like, oh, yeah, I think that's Washington.
Yeah.
I did really well, though.
You did. 10 of 12. 10 of 12.
10 of 12.
Got 2 wrong.
9.5. I'm not going to give myself a full credit for Phoenix Mercury. I know the Las Vegas Aces because one of the stories I missed while we were out was this story, the pay us what you owe us story. And I saw an argument being made by guys who I think would normally agree with me about the nature of economics, meaning the WNBA's never turned a profit. How can they demand to be paid more, right? You work for a money-losing enterprise. How can you demand to be paid more? They're subsidized by the NBA. Never been in the black, not 1 year. And I saw, for example, my friend, former co-host over at ESPN, Ryan Russillo, saying, I'm normally on that side, but a few years ago, was it the Las Vegas Aces franchise went for something like $30 million for an expansion fee or something like that, maybe $50 million? And somebody was saying now that they're talking about expanding, that the expansion, and I don't know if these numbers are correct, but the expansion franchise fees are up to like $150 or $200 million. And so you're seeing asset growth. And if that's the case, how can Caitlin Clark still make $78,000? And that was the argument they were making. And it still defies economics to me because these billionaires are banking on these things rising in asset value, despite its economics. First of all, there's a lot of bad businessmen out there, even bad billionaires, who make asset bets that don't go up. That doesn't make them profitable businesses. Okay, Will. Well, that's the story of Silicon Valley. Do you think every coder in Silicon Valley makes $78,000 while they have a Google valuation going through the roof, yet they don't make money? It's a decent point. Like, you know, the story of a tech startup is make no money, yet asset value is going up until you get to the point of turning a profit. And not everybody makes minimum wage or whatever, low wages along the way. But you know what they do? They give them equity. That's what they do. In acknowledgement, we don't have the money to pay you. They give them a piece of the upside. And so maybe that's what you do with the WNBA. Give these players, the owners will never do it, but give these players small bits of equity. But I don't think there is a pay us what you owe us argument to be made.
Are you talking about revenue share, though?
You should pick a different line of work.
Because revenue share, they don't make as much.
Because
the argument,
revenue shares gross.
It would be ownership within the league.
Gross.
But,
or the team.
I mean, like, for example,
Or in the franchise.
NBA players receive around 50% of revenue share with the league. Well, that comes in.
What is WNBA?
WNBA is less than 25% of league revenue the players make. So that's, I think, what the argument is. It's revenue share of what they're making and bringing in. That's what they're asking for.
But Dan, 50% of something that's profitable is an argument that could be made between two parties. When you have an enterprise that's not profitable and you're asking for 50% of the revenue, you're only helping it to stay in the red more. You see what I'm saying? Like,
but it's all about them.
Acknowledge the economic reality that you live inside of an economic reality. And the economic reality is you don't make money. We don't make money. This doesn't make money. Why should you make money? Right? In fact, I lose money, speaking on behalf of the owner. I lose money doing this. So how do I owe you more money? I don't know. I think it defies the laws of economics. Unless you wanted to say, hey, Caitlin, hey, whoever, you get a 0.5% interest in the franchise. Go ahead, Tinfoil.
So there is something, we were researching this story. They did cut a new TV deal for $230 million, I believe. So they are starting to make their own money and potentially become profitable. But the problem is, like, we don't know how much debt, or the connections between the NBA, because the NBA has subsidized them for so long. So there are things that have to be worked out, but they are getting to that point where they may be starting to be able to make those claims economically. But
and then Patrick, they can argue for more money. My argument isn't they're never going to make money. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But you don't now, so you're not owed anything. I thought about that a lot when I was on vacation. Those shirts seemed the most entitled thing I've ever seen. Combine that with your wig snatching story, and there's your coverage of the WNBA. We were going to talk about Christian Wilkins cut from the Las Vegas Raiders under very sketchy circumstances, but I think it deserves a deeper dive and another day of letting this one marinate and figuring out exactly what happened. A little more information here, but I think it's scandalous what happened with Christian Wilkins. Plus, your comment on can you write a law of mental health and guns? And are you not concerned about culture and illegal immigration? Tomorrow, you, the Willisha, on Will Kane Country. See you next time.
"30 minutes, once a month. It would be the modern equivalent of FDR's fireside chats. A direct, unfiltered line from the president to the people. That kind of accessibility would deepen his connection with young voters and bypass the hostile filter of legacy media. 2. Take a campus speaking tour. This May, just before he walked on stage to deliver the commencement address at the University of Alabama, I had the opportunity to meet with President Trump one-on-one. I told him directly, my peers don't just want to see their president online. They want to see him on campus. The impact of a campus speaking tour would be enormous. Universities are the beating heart of Gen Z political culture. Too often, conservatives have ceded that ground to the left. But when Trump goes into these spaces, whether it's a stadium filled with graduates in Alabama or a rally near a college town, students show up and they listen.
You're the first graduating class of the golden age of America. We're in the golden age. You watch. This is the golden age.
You saw it, heard it, and felt it in Tuscaloosa last night when President Trump delivered the University of Alabama's commencement address. Now, instead of hearing political leaders talk down America or apologize for our history, we heard from a president who spoke about the endless opportunities that are going to be available to all people who believe in themselves, of all backgrounds, of all religions, of all creeds, people who believe in their country and the value of hard work.
As you embark on this great adventure, let me share some of the biggest lessons I've learned from a lifetime spent building dreams and beating the odds. First, if you're here today and think that you're too young to do something great, let me tell you that you are wrong. You're not too young. You have to find something that you love, and you have to follow your own instincts. Treat every day like a home game against Auburn. Fight like hell and enjoy doing it. Third thing is to think big. You're going to do something, you might as well think big, because it's just as tough. Fourth is work hard. Work hard. Never, ever stop. Fifth is don't lose your momentum. You just want to keep it going.
I had chills listening to that last night. Wish I was there. Here with me is one of those graduates who was there, Mary Elizabeth Miller. She's also a correspondent with Campus Reform. All right, Mary Elizabeth, congratulations on your graduation. It went by fast. I know 4 years is like a blink. But I know you've heard the president speak before, but take us inside the arena where he spoke. Everyone seemed to be beaming and smiling, but maybe you'd expect that. Tell us what it felt like.
It was electric. It was powerful. You could feel the energy in the room every time someone came up to even monitor the mic. We thought he was coming out, and you could feel the anticipation, the excitement, and I lost my voice, so pardon me. But it was so amazing, and it was so unifying as a class, seeing majority of my classmates from the University of Alabama there together.
Well, it seemed very optimistic. I think we understood last night why President Trump connected so well with young people. And there was one line especially that I particularly loved. Watch.
The next chapter of the American story will not be written by the Harvard Crimson. It will be written by you, the Crimson Tide. True. That's true.
Oh, Mary Elizabeth, I was mad I hadn't thought of that line before. And he said, and then he's like, I love the SEC. We love America. I mean, this was just, everybody got up, because anytime you want to tease Harvard, people are going to get up and applaud. But what about that moment?
Oh, I know. We were actually standing the whole time. Not one person sat down. Not one graduate ever sat down. We were on the tip of our toes listening to every word that he said, but that line specifically really got us. And I think it's because in America, we're at a turning point, and we're turning away from elite liberalism and turning towards young conservative leaders that our voices are truly getting heard underneath the leadership of the Trump administration.
Yeah, it felt a lot to me, a little bit like the 80s with Reagan. And it's Trump with your generation. I mean, that's the only thing I can really compare it to. He also talked about victimhood. Watch.
Don't consider yourself a victim. Consider yourself a winner. In recent years, too many of our young people have really been taught to think of themselves as victims and blame people and be angry. Don't be angry. But in America, we reject that idea that anyone is born a victim. Our heroes are the ones who take charge of their own destiny, make their own luck, and determine their own fate despite the odds.
Despite the odds. Mary Elizabeth, congratulations to you. And, of course, Roll Tide.
The Kamala Harris campaign's approach to keeping their monopoly on Gen Z last November was a political consultant's fever dream. Using trendy phrases like joy in messaging, posting TikTok trends, and bringing our A-list celebrities. Up until that point, they executed the perfect made-in-a-lab playbook to win over my peers. But there was just one problem. She screamed at us instead of talking to us. There's a difference between standing on stage next to Beyoncé and thinking that's all you have to do to win over America's youngest voters, and actually taking the time to fly to college campuses and throw out hot dogs in the student section like President Trump did in Tuscaloosa last October. Remember when the world was shocked when Trump descended on the Bronx for a rally in a territory Republicans never talked about, much less visited? That same feeling of excitement, of an unseen community being seen, could happen again if the president held a speech on Harvard's campus. Imagine a presidential speaking tour that takes him to major universities across the country, not just red states, but swing states where young voters could decide the balance of power in 2026. Hearing directly from the President of the United States, not filtered through CNN or MSNBC, would cut through the noise and give students a chance to engage with conservative ideas firsthand. 3. Keep the TikTok account active. Trump's TikTok account broke records as the fastest growing in the platform's history. That momentum cannot go to waste now that the campaign is over. TikTok is where millions of young Americans spend their time, and the White House should treat it as a permanent tool for outreach, not just a campaign gimmick.
All right, TikTok getting more time on the clock as President Trump delays banning the social media giant for another 90 days. This is the third time he has done this, and some lawmakers are pretty fed up with the decision. But could the president be using this as a sticking point in trade talks with China? Joining me now, Morgan Wright, former senior advisor for the State Department. He is now a senior fellow at the Center for Digital Government. Sir, thank you for your insights here on this Saturday morning. We appreciate it. Your thoughts on this, whether or not it's legal. Here we are, another delay, another push off for TikTok. Is this a strategy, a trade strategy from the president?
Yeah, Molly, everything is a trade strategy from the president, and I think it's about reciprocity. This is one of the things I talked about. It's about the algorithms, it's about data, and it's about reciprocity. We don't have any U.S.-based social media apps really operating in China at all. Facebook, X, YouTube, Google, you name, none of those things are working over there. So I think he's using it to say, we want to be able to get this deal done, but as we're going to keep the tariffs up here until we get the deal done. And the whole goal of this is to get non-Chinese ownership. You don't have to have the data and the algorithms in China for TikTok to work. And that's always been the national security issue. What kind of influence can they run? What kind of intelligence and information can they glean? So if we can make it maybe U.S.-based, I know there's a lot of investors that are itching to get a hold of this because it's 170 million users. So it has some significant, economic impact.
Yeah, taking a quick look at the timeline here. As you mentioned, this was about national security when it all originally went down.
Right.
When Congress passed, it was signed by Biden, SCOTUS upholding the TikTok ban. Now Trump has delayed this 3 different times. There have been pretty strong objections. People have argued that it's simply not legal what the president is doing. But the Pew Research Center has some polling out that has talked about how support for a TikTok ban has actually been declining now to 32%. So there's some portion of the American people that like this app. They want to keep it going. And as you mentioned, it's about strategy. But is it safe, or does that argument about national security still stand?
No, I think the national security argument is still valid to today. And I think people, the reason you see that support go down, it's fatigue. People have been hearing about this and they're like, finally, just get a deal done. Well, I think that's what they're trying to do. But I think from a national security standpoint, it has to be anybody other than China. ABC, anybody but China. So we've got to make sure that this gets into the hands of people where we can have more transparency. Look, the CEO of TikTok came and said, hey, we don't look at any of this data only to find out later that Chinese engineers were looking at the same data they proclaimed earlier in front of the Senate that they weren't looking at. So you just look, as we've seen, you really can't trust China. Don't look at what they say, look at what they do. We've got to carve this out. And as long as it stays in Chinese control, it's a national security issue. Just think about the way you can influence people through 170 million people by changing the algorithm. By the way, TikTok is banned in China. They're not allowed to use TikTok in China. They have, I think it's called Daewoo. They have their own version of it. So what does that tell you? They understand the power that TikTok can have.
Yeah, some great points there, Morgan Wright. The big question now, who's the buyer? Is it a group of billionaires? Does Amazon find the money? Who knows? We shall see. Morgan Wright, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it.
Behind-the-scenes videos, short policy explainers, and even lighter content showing the human side of the presidency would reach audiences that traditional news outlets will never touch. TikTok's algorithm thrives on authenticity, and the White House has the chance to use it as a window into the people's house, not just a political stage. President Trump's youth outreach strategy helped rewrite the rules of American politics. It showed Republicans that Gen Z isn't a lost cause. In fact, we are trending conservative faster than any recent generation. But winning our support takes effort, it takes consistency, and it takes meeting us where we live online and on campus. Joining TikTok is a good move, but it must be the beginning, not the end. A monthly White House podcast, a presidential campus tour, and a daily energetic presence on TikTok would send a clear message. This president isn't just talking at young people, he's talking with us. That's how you prevent Gen Z from drifting toward AOC or Zohran Mamdani, and instead lock in a generation for the conservative movement.